Hello, hello. I am so excited for this panel discussion today on Inspire, Innovate, and Ignite. We have some amazing panelists here who are going to share with you how to cultivate mindfulness and a positive mindset so you can stay conscious and connected rather than scattered and overwhelmed. We have Jennifer Whittington, visionary leader and highly sought after quantum shaman, soulpreneur, and headmistress of Rise University. We also have Reshma Bhojwani here, who is the tribe host of Flourish and Freedom. We also have the business strategist and master connector, Robert Butwin. And I'm Jennifer Regular, also known as the Soul Illuminator at Lighting the Path, also a podcast host and summit leader. So why are we all here? Well, mindset and mindfulness is the topic of today, and we're going to go into a deep discussion around that, just as we do for anything in the series of Inspire, Innovate, and Ignite. These are conversations that count, the conversations that get us thinking more deeply, more innovatively, to shift the paradigms of old ways of being, and mindset and mindfulness fits right into that. And we can face challenges by the lens that we see the world through. And mindset's kind of like a framework for viewing our reality, viewing our connections, viewing ourselves, how it's mirrored back to us. We also used to talk about attitude, and that's a lot like mindfulness, mindset too. Mindfulness I see more as like a consciousness, a conscious awareness around knowing that we're having this framework that we're viewing reality from. And I'm curious from all of the speakers here today, how that sits for them, what mindset is really about, how mindfulness is really about. So when we're facing challenges, we're also facing them on every level of our being, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and mentally. And if any one of those areas is blocked, then it becomes a challenge of that area, like a mental challenge or a spiritual challenge. And it really points to what needs healing there. So we're going to get into talking about some of that healing and empowerment and spirituality and recovery and all of the things that allow us to live our best life or hinder it. So Jennifer, I'd love for you to start on who you are and what you have to say about mindset and mindfulness.
Hi, my name is Jennifer. Thank you for having me on here. I am headmistress of Rise University. And mindset and mindfulness is actually how that name came about, because it helps other light warriors who are stepping into a greater mission really know that all the answers they are seeking are inside, which you do need your mindset and mindfulness to start to unlock that, because you got to pay attention to what is going on in the moment. Mindfulness and mindset was one of the first things that I really started to do on this journey to self-healing. And for me, mindfulness really has a lot to do with like being the magician in the tarot deck, because once you are aware in the moment where you're coming in with your mindset, whether it's a limited mindset or a growth mindset, will actually determine what direction you can go to in the situation. So I'm excited to dive into this topic.
Yes, me too. Thank you for that. And Robert, please share. After you unmute yourself. There we go.
Okay. Mindset is so important. And I came aware of that in 1983. And let me share with you how I came aware of it. Because, there's an old saying, when the teacher is ready, the student will appear. Somehow I came across a cassette tape by Wayne Dyer. And it was called No Limit Person. And I started listening to it, and I came to the realization that I was responsible for the life I wanted to create. And I realized I had to change my mindset. And so, because once you take reality of what is, you can take it for what will be. But unfortunately, most people are in a state of denial. And I love the acronym of denial, which is don't even notice I am lying, but I take responsibility. So once I came aware of the importance of mindset, I started to change my mind, because when I went through my formal educational process, I took the path of least resistance. And I got a degree, but I didn't get an education. So now I had to change my mindset. I started pouring in a lot of people, that were very enlightened. And it's helped me change my mindset. And, that's carried me through my whole, the whole journey of an entrepreneurship, which I've done for a long time at a high level of success, but it's all focused on how you look at things. One of the things that Jennifer said, how you shift. My business partner, his website is Shift Happens. So we always talk about, and I take a look at my 43 years as an entrepreneur, and I think about all the changes that have happened in the last 43 years. I mean, there was no Google, there was no internet, there was no, I could go on and on. It was a landline. You've got to embrace change, because the one thing that's inevitable is change will happen.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. And how do you think embracing change would support us? Like, how do we even begin to embrace change? Because so many people are afraid of it.
Well, first of all, a lot of it goes back to the words that you speak. For example, when people ask you, how are you? And quite often we ask people, good. Well, good's not good. To me, my mindset, good is not okay. I'm amazing. There's the way you resonate the words, and it permeates throughout you, because again, you've got to be able to, first of all, recognize and understand. You've got to get some kind of clarity. Again, change is always going to happen, so you better embrace it. It's like, for example, one of my mentors, Harvey McKay, wrote the book Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty, and I tell people, don't stop digging until you go to water. Somebody poisoned my well, so to speak. So part of the mindset and the change, and again, it's how you look at things. I said to myself, first of all, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. As you're going to break through whatever you've got to break through, as you're going to mentor other people in the future, you're going to be able to look them in the eye, speak from the heart, and empathize with them, because it was something that you probably experienced. So you always want to embrace change, knowing it's going to serve you.
Yes, I love it. Thank you. Thank you. And it's so nourishing. And you bring up a good point too, when you talk about when people ask you how you are, and you say you're good, or you're saying you're fine. That's just on the surface, right? Our mind thinks that it's just an automatic habitual response. There's no mindfulness there about, how am I today? Actually, how am I really feeling? How am I truly feeling? And so mindfulness can really come into play there too. Reshma, please introduce yourself and share your ideas about mindset and mindfulness.
Yes, thank you for having me. For me, mindset is about the perspective you have in life, the way you look at life. Is the glass half full or half empty? And because the same situation, like say if you have money in your bank account, in your savings, and you can look at it and say, oh my God, my savings is ultimately going to come to an end or whatever. Like say if you're living off. So I started my business and I still have to tap into my savings because I'm not making enough money to pay my bills. So I could say, oh my God, if I don't start making enough money soon, my savings will dwindle, and that's the half empty, right? But if I look at it half full, it's like, because I have the savings in my bank account, it's giving me the permission, it's allowing me to keep working on my business and giving it the time to nurture and work on, because business takes time. That's what happens. People will quit in a year, less than a year, and then they say businesses fail, it's too risky. But if you have your stability and you have a plan and you have some savings, then I'm very grateful I'm able to keep working on my business versus fear-based, go and get a job, So that's the mindset of how you look at things and challenges and life perspective. So and also mindful of how I spend my money, right? So that I stretch it and I make it last longer. So that's mindful living, mindfully planning things, working on my business. So for me, that's how mindset and mindfulness are associated and work.
Absolutely. Yeah. The way
And
we frame our reality and look at it is going to be the way that we operate in that
yes,
reality. Yeah.
right. And it gives me the freedom to work on my business.
Mm.
So I think stability, mindfulness, mindset gives a person freedom to live the life they want, the way they want it, and fulfill their desires versus not even attempting and worrying about what people think.
Absolutely. I love it. And setting up the conditions to thrive through that.
Yes, yes.
And we have someone else who's joined us in the Zoom room. Guess who? Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my apologies. Yes, sometimes things are beyond your control, and that's where your mindfulness and mindset come in. So oh, it says guess who? I'm going to have to change that. So I'm Leslie Nace, and I am a spiritual advisor and communication specialist. So I will change my mind. And what was the question that you were asking everybody?
Yeah, Leslie, for you to introduce yourself and your ideas around mindset and mindfulness and what inspires you about that and being able to share your messages around that.
So, just given the last 10 minutes or so of actually more than that of mine trying to get on to the panel to be part of the discussion, it's and I spent a week without internet, and it all came about because it said, oh, you can upgrade. It's like, oh, sure, who doesn't want to up level their game and upgrade, have faster speed, and let's do that. Only something happened within that time that I had said yes to that. And it wasn't till yesterday I found out that the speed that I now have is more than, and so my modem wasn't connecting. And it was a time for me to kind of say, why am I not connecting? Why do I have to continually reset in order to do the work that I'm doing online with people and the clients? And it's like sitting back and being mindful to breathe into that and just to allow you to be so present with whatever is happening and not feel like over the top, oh my gosh, I can't get this. And even now that things were fixed as of yesterday, today there's something in the system that keeps asking me, are you a robot? It's like, okay, I'm not a robot. But it took a while for the whole thing to process to be able to be here and be present. So all you do when you're really, to be present with whatever's going on with you is to make sure that we have 70,000 thoughts in a day. So where are those thoughts going? And how do you bring them back to yourself and what you really want out of life? And some of that mindfulness is to connect with your breathing and your heart and just go, all right, this is where I'm at. Let's just go through the steps of how do I get there. And that's part of your mindset as well, that you're not feeling overloaded. You're just moving through it. You're getting back into the flow of life.
Absolutely. Yes. So we can stay conscious and connected rather than being scattered and overwhelmed. Totally. I'm curious how mindfulness entered your life, how you started cultivating that. So Jennifer, I'd love to hear your story around that.
Um, how I got into mindfulness was I am a recovering addict and alcoholic. I was in my addiction for about 21, 22 years. with bouts of sobriety in between those periods, revolving doors, what they call in AA. I was a revolving door. And in the program, when you work the steps, they always say it's this easy sayings: take one day at a time, think, and going through the steps is actually a guidance system for a spiritual awakening. So this last time that I had a major rock bottom moment, it was actually the one that I finally needed. And when I went back in, you get your 24-hour chip, and that was the only chip that I got. And every day was a new day. And I literally took one day at a time, sometimes 1 hour at a time, one moment at a time. And Leslie, I love what you said, because that's what really put me in mindfulness, was being in the moment, breathing, and just taking what steps I could. And every day I would wake up. This is how I changed my mindset. Every day I would wake up and ask myself, how can I be better today than I was yesterday? And it just kind of escalated from there. And taking one day at a time, I started to notice that I was being more mindful in the moment. And so I became a mindfulness practitioner. I became an Ho'oponopono practitioner, because everything else, like you said, 70,000 thoughts a day, our reticular activating system is really dictating where your mindset is on what memos it's giving you. So I really paid attention to what thoughts were happening in my head through meditation. And they weren't pretty, really. When you stop to do a really deep self-reflecting, some of the stuff that you say to yourself, and any woman or man can do this. What do you say to yourself when you look in the mirror? You start to critique. That's a mindset that needs to be changed. And I just started with affirmations and escalated from there. But mindfulness is one of the embodiments that I recommend to my client before they dive into pretty much anything, even if it's business development, learning about their human design, diving into astrology, any of those things. Because once you learn mindfulness and being in the moment and recognizing what's happening, that life's happening for you instead of to you, is when you can really start to become the alchemist and shift your direction. But it all starts within the moment, because that's where all the magic is happening. So that's what led me here today.
I'm so glad you're here, and I love the alchemy too. We get to play with that.
It is.
Robert, what do you think about all of that? Where does mindfulness fit into your life?
It's everything. Absolutely everything. Let me share with you, I started mentioning about listening to Wayne Dyer, and I started to realize there was a different way of learning. I turned my car into a university. For those of you that are old enough to remember what a cassette tape is, but early on, I came across a cassette by Michael Gerber called The E-Myth. And he starts off the cassette saying 4 to 5 businesses are going to fail in the first 5 years. Then he says, if you're one of the 20% that make it through 5 years, don't breathe a sigh of relief, because 4 to 5 of you are going to fail in the next 5 years. So I'm listening to my self-talk, because that's really, I think, part of the foundation, how we program ourselves, is listening to and understanding the words that we really speak. So as I'm listening to this, I said, that's not me. Failure was not an option, is what I started to program myself. I talk about the fact that I didn't have the luxury to not have the right kind of attitude, because I also realized that there's a direct relationship with your attitude and your altitude. So, Ben Sweetland talked about success is the journey, not the destination. So you better enjoy the journey. But as I came across my first live mentor, one of the things that he mentioned to me, because your mind, you will usually work faster than reality. And so he says, you need to have the attitude of gratitude. Be grateful for where you are as you're going to where you deserve to be. See, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're out doing something, you're in action. Every action is going to give you a result. And when quite often people will have a negative result and they will embody the fact I failed. Well, first of all fail is for all I've learned, but it's how you look at it. When you do an action, you're going to get some kind of an experience based on whatever activity that you did. And so experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. The point is, when you have an experience that doesn't go your way, how do you process that? I take a look at it, you could process, okay, that validates I'm not worth it. That's not an option in my mind. Again, I take a look at that experience as a stepping stone because I know what I deserve. I know what my life purpose is, which is to live a life of meaning by making a positive impact. The way of how you win the game is helping others win. The more that you can help others win, what we offer is hope. And if you take a look at the acronym of hope, is helping other people elevate. And if you do that consistently, you will live a life of meaning.
Amazing. Amazing. I love it. Thank you, Robert. Leslie, how does mindfulness play in your life? How does that show up for you? How do you cultivate it?
It showed up at a really young age, because I am someone who has a birthmark that's very large, as often little children would point out or other people would point out. And even as adults, I would have people say, you could. And the thing with being a young child, when you have a birthmark and that's so visible that people will ask questions, were you burned or whatever else, or what is that, can I touch it? And it's the same as your own skin, it's just a little bit different color, is that you become someone who is really tuned in to the person who is talking in front of you. To the children, it was always curiosity. They were genuinely asking the question because they're curious. They don't know. And so I treat that always, even as a child, as curiosity. As an adult, sometimes I can see myself as this, was probably about 6 or 7, with, I must have been kind of imitating my mom or someone. It's that it was kind of like, don't you know better? Than to ask that question or to say that. So you were reading, I think we all do. We read somebody else's body language, and it doesn't matter if you're someone who has a birthmark or your skin is different color or whatever makes you different in life. And I had a very diverse family. So it was my youngest brother was handicapped. So it was understanding really where are people coming from and being very mindful. And that led into my own sense of healing and other abilities that I discovered when I was young, which led me into shamanism, which I really felt connected because I grew up in a rural area. I was always outside in nature, always listening and discovering what was going on. And that's that awareness of the world in front of you or around you. And so on a daily basis, you begin to cultivate that. And when something happens, we as adults think that we're in control. We're in control of our lives. We're in control of where we're going and what our destiny is. And then something happens. So it's either your health can happen, or we face natural disasters, or, whatever it is happens in our world. And we have that choice right there. We can be the victims of what happened, or we can choose to look at it a different way. So when I was running my family business and a tropical storm came and visited and dumped a lot of rain on the whole state, and it flooded 3/4 of the business, I remember standing there going, wow, This is like spirit telling me that there are no blocks in your vision. When it knocked down this 8-foot berm and water came rushing in, I was right there. And it's time for you to think differently. And what it always brought me back to, and this is what I help my clients with, is that you do have that choice. No matter what I faced within that, again, I had the choice. Did I want to play the victim because I stood there and watched that? Did I want to say, oh, I've got PTSD? No, I had enough people telling me that they had that because they saw the destruction and they were devastated. But for me, it's those steps every day, just as Jennifer was taking. How do you go sometimes moment by moment and walk through that? Natural disasters in that area, flooding in particular, was a common occurrence, but never to the degree that it happened at this time. So, you go back to your roots. You go back to what has fed your soul and your being from the beginning, and you just breathe through it and keep moving. So everything I feel that we go through helps cultivate our sense of who we are and our place in this world. And that helps us be mindful of what it is or where it is you want to keep walking toward or out and about, however you might want to think about that.
Mm-hmm. I love that, Leslie. Those are some really great tips. And it just shows the power of choice in choosing our experiences and how we frame our reality and how we want to operate in that reality. Viewing a challenge as a problem that we love to solve, or thinking that life is so hard and here it is again, something that hits us hard again, and how we're going to move through that, basically, and that we can shift our reality. Our mind's not actually set necessarily. We can change the setting, right? We can change and shift our way of thinking and shift our paradigms and shift our beliefs.
Yeah.
Reshma, I'd love to hear from you too about how mindfulness is a big part of your life.
Yeah, for me, I became aware of mindfulness or the law of attraction, the universe, all of this only 3 years back. I was not aware of any of this. I was very spiritual within, but not consciously knowing what spirituality is. So I got on my journey of spirituality only 3 years back, when only after I started my book. No, after I started my business, and when the pandemic came, I got an opportunity to write a book, my book, finance book, Pandemic Budgeting and Finances. And that's when people reached out to me and said, "You're so vulnerable, you're so bold, you're so authentic, you're so courageous." They kept saying all these things. "You have so much wisdom." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, doesn't everybody just naturally do these things?" And um, like, I went through 2 abusive marriages, and my first one was an arranged marriage. And I came here to the US with an absolute stranger, and he landed up being mentally abusive. So I had to leave the marriage in 2 years. But I put myself first, and it was important for me. I have my whole life ahead of me, and I had things to fulfill, like this business and traveling the world. And if I had stayed married to that person, I would have been miserable and empty. So um, so those things sometimes need to be done. And I didn't, and I was from, I mean, not I was, I am from India. So 24 years back, divorce was not common in India. I think now it's becoming a little more common, but that time it wasn't common. So if I had to worry about what society has to say and my culture has to say, I wouldn't get divorced. And if I would have thought about it as a failure, as Robert mentioned, right? Oh my God, my marriage is a failure and I can't even make a marriage work and all, then I would have stayed stuck and blamed my parents, because I did tell them I didn't like this guy when through the arranged marriage process. But they didn't listen to me and they forced me to marry into it. So I could have easily blamed them or felt guilt and shame about my not being able to make my marriage work and all. But I didn't do any of that. In fact, I didn't even know there was something called shame and guilt because I came to know recently, 3 years back, 2, 3 years back, people are suffering due to guilt and shame and staying stuck in unhappy marriages and unhappy job situations and all. So that's how actually my Flourish with Freedom also was born. And I was like, I need to, it became my calling that I need to help women who are staying stuck in unhappy marriages and whatever other life situations. And I want to help them get out. And there's no guilt, shame, there's no blame, there's no uh, there's not selfish to want to put yourself first and seek out for your own happiness, love, peace, joy, fulfillment versus worrying about what people say. So that's where my journey started of self-discovery 2, 3 years back. And when I stayed stuck in my own business and I suddenly became aware that I was the biggest problem in my own business because of, and then people are telling me you can't sell things because you have childhood trauma to go and take care of. First go and do hypnotherapy, then you'll be able to do sales. It's like, what are y'all talking about? Like, I had never heard of childhood trauma or inner child healing and nothing. So that's how my journey started. And consciously now knowing what mindset means, what mindfulness means, because I think internally that's what kept me going through my unhappy marriages, and intuitively I knew what to do, but doing it subconsciously versus consciously is huge. Like now mindfully I know what to do, how to manifest, specifically what to do, how to change situations. So it's huge. Awareness is huge and it's key to change.
It's key to change. Yeah, we're bringing a lot up about change and how we can even approach that with curiosity, courage, and compassion. I love that you're bringing up too those different frames of references influenced by culture. And the people we surround ourselves with. There's so many things in people, ideas, philosophies, dogma that influences our mental framework and how we live our life and how we might or may not be able to cultivate mindfulness and to even understand or learn about what that means and how that differs from different cultures and the people that we surround ourselves with. And I'm curious about how others feel about that, about where our frames of reference even come from, what even creates that mindset. Robert, do you have anything to share on that?
I do. I have a lot of things to share about that, as far as what creates our mindset or mindfulness. And, with everything that's going on today, and there's so much different things happening. I run a room on Clubhouse, How to Prosper in Questionable Times. I take a look at the times. There's so much uncertainty. Is it inflation? Is it recession? Was this or that? There's so much confusion in the media. So it's having the mindfulness to understand the reality based on what you either how you interpret it or how you develop a network of other people of like-minded that can keep you on track. Because to me, mindfulness is so important. I focus on what I can do to help other people. I take a look at a lot of people struggling. You've got all the social media, people selling it. I mean, the AI, which is good and bad, it's creating more scams, but you're able to utilize it to be more effective in relationship to bringing your world to a larger audience. One of the things that I remember, and a lot of it goes back to how you think or look at it. A couple of things. Zig Ziglar used to say, turn lemons into lemonade. I think of the movie, if you haven't watched it, it's called A Knight's Tale. as it relates to mindfulness, because again, it's how we program ourselves. But in the Knight's Tale, it was back in the day where you had to be born into being a knight. But his dad told him, son, you can change your stars. Well, it's not quite that easy. He had to perfect the skills to be able to challenge other knights. But again, as far as how we see things based on the actions and how we determine we're going to have the kind of impact that we have as it relates to making a difference. And that's really, where it all started with myself. I was in Tiananmen Square. It was after the massacre in China, and something came down and spoke to me, and it said, you can change this world. You can be that shining light by helping other people shift how they think or look at things. And so that's where a lot of it has come from. But again, we can make a difference. Going back, there's a parable, if you haven't seen it yet, the starfish thrower. I made a difference to that one as he throws that starfish in when somebody asked him what he was doing. So it's the choices we make and the impact that we want to make in this world.
Absolutely. Yeah. What kind of impact do we want to make in this world? Jennifer, what kind of influences or impact have other people, cultures, perspectives have on you?
I will say, so before, when I was going through my journey and really recognizing my thoughts, my upbringing wasn't the best. My mom was single mom, had 3 kids, got into an abusive relationship. A lot of abuse happened within that time period. And so when I noticed the shift in me and when I turned into a teenager, I started to rebel, and kind of led me into the direction that I was going. So when I got sober this one time, I knew that it all started here. Whatever was happening, I needed to change this. So when I started to pay attention to my thoughts through cognitive dissonance, anytime that I got triggered, I would start to investigate why I got triggered. And I realized that it had a lot of the stuff that was running up here was stuff that my abuser taught me, what I learned in my childhood, the education system, the bully that picked on me when I was in, elementary school. It really was not my thoughts. It was always someone else's. So we live in a society that is specifically designed to program or influence us by emotions. We get caught in, looks, comparing ourselves to other people, when being in the moment, when we start to pay attention to what is really our thoughts and what is somebody else's thoughts, perceptions, that's where we can really start to dig deeper and shift. What I have found on this journey is that one of the things that I would get caught up on is how other people perceived me. Through human design, I figured out why that was, because my human design does play a lot into that. But what I noticed in that was that I was really giving energy to people who I knew would not support me in the long run. I didn't even resonate with it. And so that was another awareness that I had to have. And through mindfulness and my mindset, you kind of break out of these many realities that have been created within your mind. So it kind of helps you expand and experience the universe in a different way, because we're so trapped with other people's perceptions.
Your voice faded out a little bit there, Jennifer, at the end. If you want to try to repeat what you were saying there at the end.
I said that after breaking out of all these different types of realities is where we can really start to shift and expand our perception. So
Yes, I love how you bring that practice of discernment too, and mindfulness and mindset around that, in being able to discern what voice we're hearing, if it's our own or if it's someone else's. Leslie, both of you had mentioned about like 70,000 thoughts. Like, how many of those are even original thoughts? How much of them actually belong to us in our mind, in our mindset, in our heart, right? Our soul's mind. our body's mind, not just the mind up here, that our thinking mind, but our feeling mind too, and our spiritual mind, and how it affects us on every level of our being as well, as you've been talking
Absolutely
about.
does.
Yeah. Leslie, what do you have to say, or what have your observations been, or your experiences around what impact others have, others' beliefs, other influences that affect our mindset and the way we approach mindfulness, even to maybe different cultural beliefs and so on?
I definitely think there's a lot of different cultural beliefs. As I was, I'm sorry if Rashama, I'm not sure if I'm
Rashma?
saying it right. So, thank you. It's tiny print, so I wasn't sure. But what she was talking about, of not the shame and the guilt, that wasn't within her own self. I have heard Alberto Vialdo talk about, he's a shamanic teacher and an anthropologist. He talks about how, in the Christian cultures, we have Adam and Eve who were in the garden, and that shame and that guilt that came out of being kicked out of the garden. And not every culture has that. And so, is that something that's carried within a collective consciousness? Sure, it is, because there are times where that's repeated over and over and over again. And it was Jennifer who talked about Honopono. It's like that. How do you forgive yourself? How do you heal yourself of that piece that you carry within that? So culturally, I think that there are things that over time, depending on what you hear and believe and that you ask, this is the one thing I really stress with my own clients is that true for you? No matter what you're hearing on the news, what you're reading, who you're following, is that rule that you heard so long ago over and over again, is that true for you now?
Mm.
And if it's not, then let it go, because that's not something that you're going to rule your life with. And that's where you become that mindful. Like we said, that there's so many 70,000 thoughts, but 70% of those can be very negative that we pick up because we've lived in a culture that has a lot of negativity to it. So of course there are those times I'm not good enough, I could be a failure, as Robert said, and that's not part of his makeup, but those things are in there within us. One of the things that when I did the shamanic work, it was almost like it gave me license to let my own intuitive psychic self come out. And I've always had a great love for animals. As you saw, I had a cat who came out to, she thinks it's a perfect time I'm talking to somebody. That means that she can come bug me. But being an animal communicator early in my career, I love what I do with people and the animals. But I quickly found out that it is, most people want to go, just fix my cat, dog, horse, whatever the animal is. Just fix it. Tell me how to fix this. You speak to him, you fix it. And yet, more and more, it's like, no, that's not how the world works. What you've got going on is being reflected in your pet, and so there's that entanglement that's there. There's oh, my mind went blank, but it's physics. And so I really started backing away from that because I did feel that calling of having to deal with the human element and the human element of what they perceive to be happening in their world, what they're carrying in their body, what they're giving off from work to home and to everybody. If they're feeling that negativity, if they're down, if they're depressed, all of that plays a part in who's ever in your environment. And so for me, it became one of opening up greater and greater. And then, of course, we ended up having a time where everybody seemed shut down. Everybody had a chance to kind of go, what am I doing?
Mhm.
And yet they're still trying to figure out, what am I doing? They're still in great fear in many ways. And that influence of, how do you balance again? How do you be resilient yet in flow with things that are happening? And how do you move forward in your life if you are always in some sense of heightened fear or concern when the world seems to be crumbling around you? Now, seems is the perception, because you can find out that cyclically we've had these times before and people have flourished. There's so many innovative new things coming out all the time. And it's groups and panels like this that when you listen to someone speak, you go, oh my gosh, that's a different idea. I didn't think of that. That might work for me. And that's so encouraging. And that's what people are starving for, that kind of connection. They may not be able to pinpoint what's going on yet, but to have, you know, other healers, workers, whatever you want to call yourself, because what we communicate in words is really what we're telling ourselves as well. It's all very important.
Yes, very important, very important. And I love that you brought up fear too, because it just goes to show that when we're facing challenges, that it does affect us on every level. And fear can be emotional, mental, and spiritual, right? And it affects us physically, obviously, right? The fight or flight or fawn, and it affects us emotionally, like feeling that fear. And spiritually, that fear comes in when we feel separate or disconnected from our higher power. And then also mentally, in the framework around it, when fear could be seen as face everything and rise, or forget everything and run, right? And those aren't the only two choices, but just an example of a framework around that, in a construct that we put in as this mindset of fear. Or there's love, right? Lots of vital energy is an acronym for that, and how we can perceive that. I'm going to swing it back to you, Reshma, about, because you had inspired this idea around cultural influences and different perspectives and moving from different countries. And, you know, is there anything that you wanted to add around that, around those cultural influences?
Yeah, it's I'm from India, and in India, I've never been religious. I'm a Hindu, but I've never been a practicing Hindu. And I grew up with religion, and I didn't believe in it, and I wasn't introduced to spirituality. And India is one of the places where spirituality starts, and I didn't know about it. So I was, when I came, when I 2-3 years back, I was like, how is it that I'm from India and I've never heard of chakra meditation and the 7 chakras, and why did they just focus on religion versus spirituality? So it was, and then they have this thing about male domination, and you need a man in your life for everything. So when I was married to my ex-husband, um, I would depend on him. Like, I wanted to start a business since I was 18, and I always knew I'll start a business sometime in my life. But when I was with him, I mentioned to him so many times that I want to start a business. But that time I was dependent on him, or, his advice, his suggestions, like, wanting his support to start a business. And I wasn't getting it. And I was like codependent. And so I didn't start a business. I tried once, but I didn't get the support, or, he gave me wrong advice or whatever. Plus, I didn't know at that time when I was married to him that he was a narcissist. So I guess that's another whole story. But after I got divorced, I was like, I'm going to start my business. So now, on my own, without any support of any man, I started my business. While I was with him for 12 years, I could never start a business. And even now, my mom keeps telling me, you can't do a business on your own. You need some partner or collaboration or somebody to work with. So it's that mindset and our culture where women can't do things on their own. They need help. Even now, I was selling my house, and she's like, you can't sell the house yourself. You need guidance. You need to reach out to your cousins and get their advice, help. And I was like, no, I don't. And I'm going to make my own decisions, because then they'll give you they'll influence you in whatever way they think is right. And they basically don't think it's correct for me to just do a business, since I'm the breadwinner of the house. And how are you living, and how are you making money? And if you're not making money, how much of your savings are you going to use up? And they think I'm being totally impractical, and that I need to go and get myself a job. And when I tell them, no, I'm not. Even now, I sold my house. I'm moving from Connecticut to Ohio. So the first thing they asked me is, oh, have you gotten a job in Ohio? Is that why you're moving to Ohio? And I was like, no. So they think I'm cuckoo and totally crazy to start my business and live off of my savings. But that's how the culture and beliefs are, that women can't do things on their own, especially in the culture I'm from. Yes.
And you're a living testimony that we don't have to adopt that kind of mindset or that belief system, right? You're doing what you're doing anyway, because you know the truth of who you are, who you're here to become, and who you're here to be, and what you came here to do. And you're doing it anyway. You know,
Yes.
you found your way into a different place that is more supportive, and in a community like sacredyou.love that is more about community, and even hosting your own tribe so that everyone can flourish with freedom. And so I'd love to hear from Sophia Soul, who's here now, who's a co-founder of sacredyou.love, to talk more about that, about surrounding ourselves in community and all of the different offerings that are available here at Sacred You. Love. If she's still here, and if she's not, then we'll welcome anyone who's been listening or watching on any of the live streams. If you have any comments, questions, any input, love to hear your views too on mindset and mindfulness. And I'll open it up to everyone in the room here if there's any final thoughts around this subject here in this Zoom room. So Robert, Jennifer, Reshma, Leslie, is there any final thoughts around this topic?
I've got a lot of final thoughts. First of all, you're talking about fear, and you forgot one of the acronyms, which is face everything and rise. Once you face your fear, it will dissipate. The other thing, we're talking about beliefs, because if you look at the word belief, right in the middle of the word belief is the word lie. So the point is, as you're shifting your consciousness, you have to, if you really want to thrive, you got to take a look at what are your beliefs that you're holding on to that you should release, that are limiting you, and which of the beliefs that you've got are helping you create the success that you deserve. So, and that's where, as it relates to me, how I changed my mindset, because I know the beliefs that support me, and I had to let go of the beliefs that were holding me back. And the other part of it is we all have certain, when we're in action, we're going to get results, and there's certain lessons we're supposed to learn. And one of the things I learned early on is life will continually trip you up until you learn the lesson you're supposed to learn. So I just take a look at the fact that here's something that happened that was for me. What did I learn from this so that I can go to the next level? So those are some of my final thoughts, and yeah, I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Robert.
I loved all what you said, Robert. I love your acronyms. I'm an acronym girl too. For anybody who is watching, if mindfulness and your mindset will absolutely change your life. Just take one day at a time, start paying attention to what is actually playing up there. Ask yourself, is it a belief system? Is it yours? Does it resonate? Is that working for you? And really start to get back to the core of your values and who you are, instead of everything else that's around us. And it's everything. It pays attention to your music, what you're watching, the people you're talking to, family, all of it, and just start getting back to who you are and what's the difference between someone else.
You are in the difference you want to make. Thank you, Jennifer.
I wanted to say about fear. Fear of the unknown holds us back because we are afraid to get out of our comfort zone. But once we just take that leap of faith and take that first step, and it needs to be just one baby step, but a whole new world opens up to us. Like I stayed stuck in my abusive marriage for 12 years because of the fear of the unknown. And I was like, at least I know what he's like and what to expect. And this is my second marriage, which is going to become a divorce. And then God knows what the third boyfriend or husband will be like. So, so I stayed stuck longer than I really wanted to, or at least 5 years longer. And time passes by and we get older, and then it's not worth it. So we just need to have belief, faith, trust in ourselves and do what's best for us.
Thank you, Rashma. Do you have any final thoughts, Leslie?
I do. Mindfulness and mindset, it's as humans, we're always evolving, always learning, like Robert said, always testing our beliefs, like Jennifer said. And sometimes we do get stuck in ways that we're staying longer than we thought in one section or another. But this human journey is not over until we take that last breath. So until that time, enjoy the ride, because the ride may be unlimited. You're gonna get to the two roads that go different ways, and you pick a different path, and you don't live necessarily in the other one, but maybe there's a parallel life where you do live in that. But enjoy the choice that you made, and just be open to what it is. And you might discover more than you ever thought was possible, because you have more power than you ever knew was possible.
Love it. Thank you so much, Leslie. And all of these wonderful panelists are easy to connect with. I know that Sophia is going to share the links of how you can do that and all the special offerings that they have as well. And Sophia, are you here now to share about our sacred community at sacredu.love?
I am, Jennifer, and thank you ever so much. This has been a wonderful panelist. I'm ashamed I wasn't able to join at the beginning, but I have been listening in the background, and I've loved everything, what everyone said, and all your tips, and to create or to be mindful in our daily lives and everything else, and to have to have that, or to create that mindset that helps us. And I love what everyone has shared. Yes, we have been, all our beautiful VAs have been putting all your links in the comments. So do, for everyone who's watching live, do check out those links and connect with these wonderful people who have just shared their passions for the last hour with everyone. Before we wrap up, I just want to ask very quickly, and I'm just going to turn off my phone. Reshma, who is a wonderful host, I heard you talking to Reshma. Do you want to tell us about your tribe a little bit?
Sure, yes. My tribe is Flourish with Freedom, and it's on every Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And we talk about how you can live a life of freedom, choosing the spiritual paths to reach where you want to reach, and to live the life you deserve and desire without, on your own terms, without worrying about what people have to say, and putting yourself first. And literally, everybody deserves it, and and they need to just do what's best for them and not worry about what people have to say. And live a fulfilled life. Yes.
Thank you, and I thoroughly recommend joining Reshma's tribe. I love it. It's one of the most thought-provoking tribes that we have. It's really great conversations, And Jennifer Whittington, we've got two Jennifers. Jennifer has just recently joined us as one of our new hosts. So Jennifer, I'm really excited about your tribe. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I'm actually taking the tribe over from Sophia. So there's a couple people that's already in there, but it's the Spiritual Empire Building Tribe. And we're going to be going over how to build your empire, your business, using business techniques as far as copywriting, marketing, building websites, that type of thing, the techie stuff, but also integrating esoteric knowledge, astrology, some human design, mindfulness, and other things that can help you flourish within your business. So we start Sunday, this coming Sunday, actually. So
Yeah, which we're excited about too. And last but not least, our beautiful Jennifer Regular isn't one of our tribe hosts, but Jennifer, I don't know if you had a chance, Jennifer, to say that you're our blog writer, and we will be putting all the links to your blogs, and I'm really excited about what's coming up. So thank you for Jennifer. Do you want to say anything about your blogs or anything?
Thank you so much. No, I'm happy. Happy that everyone was here and we had a wonderful discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, and I really thank you. And I really appreciate everyone for being here. And of course, for anyone who's watching the live or the replay, come and join us. Come join us just for $1 Australian. And not for that $1 Australian, you get 2 weeks to trial out Reshma's tribe, Jennifer's tribe, and all of our other 20-something tribes, more than 20 tribes, just for $1 Australian for 2 weeks. And then after that, it's just $15 Australian a month. Do click on the links below to do that. We've got lots of panel discussions coming up. Again, click on the links below. We've got all sorts of topics on anything to do with empowerment and spirituality. Check them all out and come and join us. So thank you ever so much.